Good evening, folks. This is The Weird Part, and I am your host, Vincent Treewell. Tonight, I have a very special guest. I'd like to welcome Mary from Firefly, Reiki, Hypnosis, Reiki, Hypnosis, and Lenormand card reading. Welcome to The Weird Part, Mary.
Thank you.
As you can tell by my mispronunciation, I am not a person who knows a great deal about Reiki. You are, however, a Reiki master.
I am.
Could you tell us in terms that maybe the general public, layman's terms, thank you, that we could understand kind of what is Reiki and what is it that you do as a practitioner?
First of all, the word Reiki is broken down, and the first part, Rei, translates to universal life force, and the second part, Ki, translate to physical energy in the body. So that's where the word Reiki comes from, and a lot of people pronounce it wrong. I always tell them picture a rake, that you rake your yard with, Reiki. And I mean, it doesn't sound right, but it is.
No, that I need mnemonics like that to remember anything. Yes.
Yeah. And people often say, like, they think that people that do Reiki are healing people. And in reality, we don't heal. We help you to heal yourself. What happens with Reiki is people come to us because they have different issues. And a lot of times the reason people have issues is because their energy is blocked. You have these things in your body called chakras, which are little energy wheels, and there's 7 major chakras. And if any of them are blocked, that means that your energy is not flowing smoothly. You can have a blocked throat chakra, for example, and some of the side effects from having a blocked throat chakra would be maybe you'd have a harder time communicating or speaking. You might have problems with your throat. Maybe you cough a lot or just have difficulty in your throat area. People have sometimes their crown chakra is blocked, and they'll have trouble, especially if they're a spiritual type of person. They might have a lot of trouble using their spiritual gifts if their crown chakra is blocked. So what we do is, we don't specifically go in saying, I'm going to help you with your throat chakra. We don't really always know exactly what the person needs, but because we're doing all of their chakras and we're helping the energy to flow through their body, it's going to help everything. And it's not going to hurt any of the ones that are already working right. It's just going to accentuate them and help your whole body. So when I do Reiki, I have a person who, they lay on the massage table just as though you were going to have a massage, except that you're fully clothed. I don't actually touch you. There are people that do Reiki that do touch. I don't. My hands are like maybe an inch away from your body, and I use different I put my hands in different ways around your body to help the flow of the energy and to keep the wheels turning. We want those wheels to be turning. At one time, it was thought that the wheels had to turn clockwise, but it's been discovered since then that some people's wheels actually go counterclockwise. So it used to be if they saw that, they thought something was wrong, but it's fine. Everybody, I guess, has their own thing. So a lot of times it can manifest itself when you don't have good energy. It will manifest itself as maybe you don't feel good, or you're tired, or you're just stressed out. Like or you are stressed out and that's actually causing the energy to be blocked. Maybe you've been through a serious illness that can cause blockages. Just maybe injury, you broke your leg or you were in a car accident. There's a lot of different things that can cause, if you live in a stressful situation or you have a stressful job, that can cause energy block. So I hope I answered pretty much of your question.
Oh, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
You mentioned the wheels. Now,
Yes.
Are the wheels part of the physical body, or are they more in like the astral body? And I'm probably stepping over concepts there, but would that be how would you describe it?
You don't actually see the wheels physically. Like you couldn't see them if you could take your body apart and look. You wouldn't actually see a wheel. Um, it's, I guess it is part of the spiritual body, the soul body, whatever you want to
Okay.
call it. So yeah,
So,
it's not an actual thing that you can see uh, with your eyes.
well,
I
it's
don't know
an
how else, but
actual thing, just not a physical thing. Like
right,
yeah,
right.
you might say if um, this sounds, and again, I'm speaking completely as an outsider, but sounds vaguely similar to the life force in traditional Chinese medicine.
It was,
And go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. It actually comes from Japan, but
Okay.
it is very similar. It's similar to a lot of different Eastern modalities that they have, like acupuncture, for example. Not that I don't do acupuncture, but I know the lady that shares my office actually does acupuncture. So I know a little bit more about it than some people might. And I'm also having acupuncture treatments right now.
Okay.
So sort of a similar thing where they're releasing blockages through your body. I think acupuncture, not that I know that much about it, but they also work with your meridians, I believe, I think they're called. So it's like different parts of your body, depending on what your problem is and what you need fixed. You would put the needles in different areas of the body. I'm not an expert. So
No, no, I understand, but just kind
they
of
are
there
very,
is a
they're
kind
really,
of a similarity.
well, they say it's Reiki is acupuncture without using needles. That's what they
Okay.
say.
That makes a lot
I
of sense. You're that you're mentioning the chakras made me think of yoga and the Kundalini energy. Is
yes.
that also similar?
Um, I believe the Kundalini energy is something that there is certain kinds of yoga that you can do to reach that. And I don't think you reach it immediately. It's something that's kind of a gradual process. I've never experienced anything like that with Reiki. Um, and we never discussed it when I was learning Reiki. So I don't know that much about that. I've
So, oh, it's
heard,
a totally different thing. I
yeah,
just
heard
wondered
of
if there was any
a
crossover.
Kundalini, but not necessarily through Reiki. But yeah,
Okay.
I personally, I don't know too much about that.
No, no, I understand. It's a fascinating science, though, that to be able to free up somebody's energy and let their body heal themselves. And
Amazing. And
yeah, I bet you have some stories.
oh, I do have stories, believe me. When I first started, I worked as a volunteer in a hospital in a cancer ward, giving people Reiki because it made them feel better. And it would be during their treatments. And there were people that I remember, like, I would go back and have the same person maybe 3 weeks in a row. Not that that always happened because it wasn't always, they weren't always there on the same days.
Mm.
But the one man I remember told me after the third treatment, he said, I've been really depressed for like the last couple months, and I just had no urge to get out of bed and didn't want to go out, didn't want to see my friends. He said, but today, when I woke up, I opened my eyes and it was like I had all this like sudden interest in doing things and going places and calling my friends. And he said, and I haven't done a thing differently except these Reiki treatments. And
Wow.
he really thought it was due to the Reiki. And he said it made him feel so
Mhm.
much better. So it can be not just physically better, but emotionally, it can affect you as well. So it can help with things like depression and anxiety and, that kind of thing. I also had another guy that I went to the hospital that day, and his mother actually came up to me and said, can you give my son Reiki, please? He's in horrible pain. He hasn't slept for like 2 days. So I went in and I said, well, I can't promise any miracles. I said, I'll do the best I can, but, you know, kind of felt a lot of pressure. And I went in there and he was pacing back and forth because he was in terrible pain. He was like in the last parts of his cancer journey, I guess you want to call it.
Mm.
He laid down and I started giving him Reiki. And within 5 to 10 minutes, he was sound asleep,
Wow.
not like moving around like he was uncomfortable, sound asleep, laying completely still. I finished the Reiki treatment. left to go do other patients, came back like an hour later, he was still sleeping, left again. And then when it was time for me to go home, I went back to check on him again. He was still asleep.
Wow.
I
Uh,
was just, like blown away by that. And the mother was like, he hasn't been able to sleep for days. This is like a miracle. So it's
mhm.
like not that the Reiki was curing anything, but it did take away his pain enough that he was able to get sleep. And
Oh,
actually,
yes.
sad part of that story is he died a week later. So that's how severe the pain was.
Which undoubtedly was going to happen anyway, but at
Oh,
least this was a
sure.
huge relief in the meantime. Yeah.
Right. And it's magical. It's all I can say. I mean, that story always brings tears to my eyes because it was the biggest thing that ever happened when I did Reiki for someone and really made me believe even more so. Also, we had people that, like, I can remember there was one case where the man had really high blood pressure. And so they couldn't give him his treatment that he was supposed to have because his blood pressure was too high. They had to wait for it to come down. And the nurse was really busy. And me and another girl started giving him Reiki. And the nurse came back and she said, "What did you do?" And we said, "What?" And she said, "His blood pressure is normal now."
Wow. Wow. And
Yeah.
that often, yeah, it can be really huge for somebody to resolve those emotional or whatever, well, I guess the blockages. And
And it
there's
relaxed.
the mind body, synthesis there. Wow, that is really impressive.
Thought it was too. And I think, like, in the beginning, when you start doing something like that, you think, oh, this is nice, whatever. You don't
Mhm.
realize until some of these things happen how huge it is. Like, you really are helping these people. It really makes a difference. And that's very exciting when you're the person doing it.
Oh, I bet. I bet. It probably took a number of years of extensive training to get to that level, I assume.
It takes a lot of practice. I mean, learning the Reiki is fairly easy, actually. It doesn't take that long to learn. You study it and then you go through different, first year Reiki 1, then Reiki 2, then Reiki 3. It's just a matter of taking the classes and learning it. But I think it takes a while to really understand. Like, I know in the beginning, I was just like, not petrified or anything like that, but just like you didn't really know what you were doing. Is this really doing anything? I mean, they say it does, but does it? Uh, and then if you see things like that happen, it's pretty amazing to realize, yeah, this is huge. This makes a big difference.
I would guess that nothing, yeah, nothing succeeds like results. You suddenly see something happen, like wow, that is really interesting.
In the
Um,
beginning, when we first started doing it at the hospital, we were one of the first, at least at that hospital. There was another hospital that had been doing before us, but just that hospitals allow that is amazing to begin with. I just want to say 20 years ago, you would not have had people doing Reiki in hospitals. But when we first started doing it, the nurses treated us like, whatever. But
I'm sure there's probably some resistance there. Yes.
yeah, go do Reiki. And then, and not that they were, I mean, I understood, I got it. Like,
Mhm.
they understood things like they had a person that came in and did massage, that was more like they could understand how that would work.
Mhm.
Uh, but then after they started seeing things like that, all of a sudden they were the ones coming over and getting us and saying, "Hey, can you give my patient Reiki over here? He really needs it." And
Wow.
we,
Wow.
you know,
That's a
so that was
much more holistic approach than, they had in the past, most
it's
definitely.
interesting that, and it's time for these
Oh, yeah.
places to, not that there's anything wrong with Western medicine. Well, there can be, but basically what the ones that do it the way it should be done and are, not abusing it they can be complementary to each other. It doesn't
Oh,
have to be
absolutely.
one or the other. There are times where you have to use Western medicine, but if you're also getting acupuncture, you're also getting Reiki, whatever, it can be very complementary.
Yes, exactly. It's not an either or. It's
No,
more
doesn't
of
have.
an and that
That's
I'm very strong a believer in that. Yes.
true.
My wife has received acupuncture in the past and gained noticeable benefit from it. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
I'm getting acupuncture right now. I've
Oh,
been getting
yes.
January, and I've had health issues in the past, and so I have really poor stamina and really poor immune system response. And because of that, I'm either sick or I'm tired all the time.
Oh,
And
man.
it's terrible. I get sick, I catch everything. And then it takes me days to get better. So anyway, the woman I'm working with, who I share the office with, is giving me acupuncture, and she's also helping me with um, ways of improving your health naturally, because she also works with Eastern medicine.
Hmm.
And uh, she said the number one thing in Eastern medicine, the number one medicine is food.
Hmm.
Um, it's not pills, it's not medication, the number one medicine, like it's too long to explain and I'm probably not telling it right, but she told, like there's certain foods that you think are perfectly healthy for you, but if you have a deficiency like I have, for me, some of those things aren't, maybe it's not that they're not healthy, but they're not helping me as much as I think they are. There's other foods which I maybe wouldn't have thought of. Those are the ones I should have right now. And it's a completely different way of looking at it than we look at it. Like,
Oh, yes. Yes. We mostly eat to satisfy
right,
our appetites,
yeah,
and that's a very different way. I've just read some things here and there, but it
it
is a
really,
fascinating way of looking at it, and probably something that I should look into further, really.
you know, I was kind of blown away by it because I really thought I knew a lot. And I guess I do when it comes to our culture, you know. I thought
Mhm.
I knew a lot about health. And I mean, I was trying everything because I was so unhealthy. Um, and not that I ever did anything to be unhealthy, but I had cancer and
Oh,
I
man.
had chemotherapy for a long time and also radiation therapy, which really just wipes you out, your immune system, it wipes out everything. And that's why I was so, but before that, I was perfectly healthy. And so that's one of the reasons why I have these symptoms. And that's why I started seeing her. And like I said, it's amazing. The information that she's given me has changed my life. I mean, just
Wow.
changed my life. And I am doing much better after a couple months of having acupuncture and changing certain things in my diet and different things that I do now that I didn't do before. And so again, Eastern medicine, I had to go for when I had cancer, I had to have chemo, I had to, and that's all Western medicine, but I would have died otherwise. I was that severe. Uh, but now I can turn to Eastern medicine, and I'm sure Reiki, I do self Reiki, things like that as well, at acupuncture. So they work together. Yes.
Yes, and that's a really inspiring story of, kind of having them work hand in hand,
Yeah.
that the Western medicine confronting the immediate physical problem,
Right.
and then the Eastern medicine greatly assisting in the recovery, which is
Right.
equally important in the long run.
You'll believe
Wow.
me. Bigger than you think.
I'm
Um,
sure that you have a lot more insight there. Yes, most definitely.
I bet
Um,
I,
what's that?
I said, I bet I do.
Yes, yes, I won't argue that one. Not to change the subject too hard, but in addition to being a Reiki master, you are also a practicing hypnotist.
Yes.
Um, what
I,
can you tell us about that?
well, I'm what's called a clinical hypnotist, which is not the same as a hypnotherapist. And that's something we, like to make sure people realize. I'm not a therapist. So if you need therapy, you should go to a hypnotherapist, or you should go to a therapist and then get your hypnosis from a clinical hypnotist. If I have somebody with severe issues like depression and, things like that, where it's almost life threatening, I'm not going to take them on as a client unless they see a therapist as well. However, I do have a lot of clients that are more, I don't want to say normal because those people are normal too, but
Yes,
you
no, I think I understand what you're saying.
know, run
Yes.
like we do a lot of weight loss and quitting smoking, which is kind of like the bread and butter of the hypnosis industry. uh and it works for a lot of people. I've had a lot of people quit smoking with me. uh but also I personally prefer the spiritual hypnotism. And there's a lot of different things you can do spiritually with hypnosis. I like to do I like to do past life regressions, chakra balancing. There's all sorts of meeting your spirit guides, meeting your guardian angels. There's a lot of really interesting ones you can do that.
Wow. I have to tell you, other than the past life regression, I have not heard of those other things being approached through hypnosis.
I don't know
Uh,
how to do it. I just am so interested in it, I think,
mhm.
and I offer it. Like I do group sessions here, and I often this week actually I'm doing a past life regression group. And so every so often I'll do some, one of the spiritual ones. And I just enjoy that a lot. I just think if it had been something offered to me before I was doing this, I would have immediately gone to it because it's so interesting to me.
Yes. Now, and I'm not trying to split hairs here,
Sure.
but would you consider yourself a medium?
No, I have had training in mediumship because I have a really good friend that's a really amazing medium, and I've worked with her. She's kind of been my mentor over the years. I would say, if anything, I'm more of a psychic.
Okay.
I have psychic abilities, and I always have. I didn't even know what they were. And that comes in more with my Lenormand cards. I use that ability more when I'm doing readings for people. And I didn't even realize I was doing that when I first started.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was just reading the cards, but in reality, the cards are sort of like a tool to get me started. And then I
Mhm.
sort of going. So I wouldn't say I'm a medium. I don't have really mediumship abilities,
But
but
through hypnosis, you help people come in contact with their spirit guides?
yes.
Okay. Um, well, how would you describe the past life regressions?
Well, they're always very interesting. It depends if they're like a single person in a private session or a group session. The private sessions for me are more interesting because I can actually talk to the person as we're doing it. But when there's a group, I can't do that because, it would be confusing to the other people in the group and you wouldn't really be able to. But with like a past life regression with a single person, I sit there and I ask them questions and write down the answers. And so it's very eye-opening and intriguing listening to them give details about these past lives that they're not making it up because some of the details they give are just so impressive. I've had quite a few past life regressions myself before I became a hypnotist and after,
Oh,
and had some really amazing experiences with it. Is that what you asked me? I don't.
yes, yes. That past lives is a huge thing for me.
Oh,
Um, I have only had like flashes of insight, intense memories, um, things that I've never had anything where I could point to, I lived at this address in a past life or something like that.
yeah, not usually
But
that's
yeah, that's pretty specific. But I do know to my own satisfaction, if I can't prove it to anybody, I know that I have lived previously
for sure.
at least once, and I tend to think it's quite a bit more than once. Um, and
Usually
that's
a
go ahead.
lot. I was just gonna say most people have lived pretty many past lives. I mean, if you're a believer in past lives, they say the average person has lived thousands of times um,
Wow.
before you achieve. Well, that's a whole nother thing, but
And then Buddhism sees it one way, Hindu another,
yes,
spiritualists another. Yes. But yes, we've all been around and around.
the
Do you
higher
ever go ahead?
energy you have, the higher you are up energy wise. Like the higher your energy is probably the more past lives you've had.
Very interesting. You're supposed to learn some things along the way, yes.
That,
Not just repeat the trip again and again.
yeah.
Have you ever come across anybody who had past lives that were not on this earth?
Well, I was in a group one time, a past life regression. I wasn't the one doing it, but someone else was. And at the end, we all talked about our past, our experience. And we had one person that did say they were from another planet.
Wow.
Anytime
That
I've ever.
I don't expect it to be common, but I have heard of it happening.
Mhm.
And that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah,
Partially just based on the number of the
right.
world population. And if you're repeating souls, you'd need more souls from somewhere
Would,
else, you
yeah,
know.
there
But
would be. Yeah.
but that makes a lot of sense to me. I find that a fascinating aspect when it occurs.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting listening to that person's life, past life. We were all kind of taken aback because none of us had really thought about that.
Uh-huh.
And he was describing what his spaceship looked like and how he looked, and he was on this other planet. I don't remember all the details anymore because it's been a while since that happened, but yeah, it was very interesting.
Hmm. I bet. Um, let's see. And it's if the answer is no, that's fine. The answer is no. Have you ever
Okay.
done have you ever done future life progression?
A future life, what?
A progression into a future life.
You can do that, but I've never done it.
Okay, okay.
I haven't tried that yet, but it does intrigue me as well.
Yes, I've
And
only heard of it, but it seemed absolutely fascinating.
you can
Um,
also do between lives.
oh,
You can do
what
for for there's a word for it and I can't come up with it right now, but yeah, what happens to you in between? Where do you go? What happens? You can do that.
what do people report?
I haven't done it.
Oh,
I've
okay,
never.
okay.
It's just
Yes,
like
I'd be very curious about that. I
I
would
know
bet
that
I bet
sounds
we
like
don't all have the same experience either.
no. Mm-mm.
That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are the biggest public misconceptions about hypnosis?
Well, the misconceptions are usually something like um, what you see in TV or on TV and in the movies, or if you're at a show where they have, those people come up on the stage and line up and, act like whatever, and they don't remember it, and everybody laughs at them. That's a lot of people. That's the only thing they think of and I mean, that actually is hypnosis, but that's stage hypnosis.
Yes, yes.
It's not what I'm going to do.
No, no, no.
So
I
they
did go
say
to
that,
one of those when I was younger and was hypnotized and told that my feet were stuck to the floor. And it was the oddest thing because at that moment they were stuck to the floor. And then
right?
the guy made a big deal of, "Ha, you're released." And I was released.
Yeah.
It was stage hypnotism.
Yeah.
It was like pulling rabbits out of hats, stage magic compared to
Right.
something much more serious, you know.
Exactly. It's just for fun. That's just for fun. And that's fine. It has its place, but it's what people always, the first thing they'll say to me is, you're not going to make me act like a chicken, are you? Or and I'm like, no, I don't do that.
You don't
But
really build a
a bit,
client base making people
no.
act like chickens, you know.
And not only that, but I film you while I do it. No, I don't do that. But that's a lot of people will say, talk about that, or just in movies and things like that. I think there was a movie not too long ago that I saw. Do you remember the movie Get Out? Where
Oh yes.
he
Oh,
was a,
yeah, a great flick. Yes. Uh-huh.
and she hypnotized,
Jordan Peele. Yeah.
yeah, she hypnotized the kid in the movie. And I can't remember what she made him do, but she made him do something. And I was like, oh, great. Another movie about a bad hypnotist.
Yes, yes. I think she just kind of freezes him so he can't resist or something along those lines. But yeah, it was not a very good portrayal of hypnotism
It
at all.
wasn't a portrayal of a hypnotist, but they never are when they're in movies. They never are. Like they're always some evil person up to some evil thing that they're. And that's
Well,
not real.
anytime you're doing something that the rest of society doesn't fully understand, a lot of
Yeah,
people are gonna see it as evil.
right.
Um,
Oh yeah,
you
they
know,
think like you're gonna turn them into the devil or something.
yes, it's right next door to witchcraft, you know. Um,
Like ever remember thinking that. Like when I've always been super interested in hypnosis as long as I can remember. And never did that cross my mind that it was an evil thing. Like I never ever thought that way. I, I don't know where they get it from. The movies.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that too that whether it be spiritualist mediumship gets
Right.
just torn apart sometimes by people who have probably never known anybody who was involved with that and have certainly never been to a service
Right.
and think all kinds of bizarre things that are not happening.
Like
And
sacri- like
what's it?
I think we're doing sacrifices and
Yes. And really take that seriously as like, it's not like that at all.
no.
Um, I've attended and, have been attending just lately the First Spiritualist Church in West Allis.
Mhm.
And those are about the most positive,
I was
uplifting people you're going to find,
yeah, they really are nice people. And I'll tell you something, and I tell this story all the time because okay, some years ago, I don't know how many years ago, probably about 10 years ago, there was a group looking for a place for homeless people because it was really going to be cold for like 2 weeks straight, like really cold, like 30 below zero or something. It was like this cold snap. And they couldn't leave. They didn't have enough space. They have more space now, I think, that they people can go, but at that time they didn't. And they were reaching out to the community to see if any of the churches would open up. Not one other church accepted
wow.
it except for the first
Wow.
church, and they did it for 2 weeks. Every day they had to have somebody there every day 24/7 with those people along with the people in this group. And I said to myself, are you kidding me? All those churches out there, those huge buildings that they have that are heated, and not one
Hmm.
of them ever came up and said that they would do it. It was only the spiritual church. And I always think about that because I thought that's what people did that were spiritual. They help people, they provide for people that are lesser or that have needs.
Hmm.
And they did it. The
Oh,
spiritual
yes.
did it, and they were true to what they preach and what they practice. They really
Hmm.
did in real life, and that made me really devoted to them.
Oh, yes. Actions speak louder than words. And there's some very good people.
Yeah, and that was the only church out of
And that is
ever.
such a waste because there's just,
What
tons of churches in the metro area. And
so
they easily could have housed everybody.
they easily could have, and I mean the people were sleeping on the pews in the pews
Mhm.
at the spiritual church.
Wow. Wow. Which is
Mhm.
not a huge structure either.
Oh, it's
You
one of
know.
the
um, let me see. I was going to ask you about hypnotic regression, not of a past life, but within this life. Is that something you're involved with? And what have your experiences been like?
that is something you can do. A lot of times you can use that as far as when it comes to like PTSD, post traumatic stress
Oh,
disorder,
yes, yes.
or
Something
anything
I actually have myself. Yes.
really.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Heard I actually haven't worked with anyone for that, but I've heard it works.
Hmm.
You can go to the past and like help heal that time period so that
Okay.
it doesn't come back up again. It's kind of hard to put into words. I don't know exactly how to explain it. And it doesn't have to be PTSD either. It can be just some trauma from the past, or maybe, growing up, your mother used food to reward you, and that's why you always eat cookies every day. It can take,
Oh,
you can go
yes, yes.
that suggestion. Yes, that does work. It is a common thing to do with hypnosis.
But you'd be more bringing the person back to that state of mind rather
Right.
than like, I'm not going to be able to go back to the war in Somalia and remember like license plate numbers or something.
No, no, no.
It doesn't
Uh,
really, because some people have the misperception that it's like a tape recorder and you can just
no.
rewind your mind. That's not correct, is it?
No, I would just probably just tell you, so you're back. in the time period where you experienced this thing that happened to you that now causes you to have PTSD. And I mean, I wouldn't say this thing, you would have told me what it was, so I'd be able
Hmm.
to say what it was. And, and then we would just try to, it probably wouldn't happen the first session, but gradually I think we'd be able to help you so that it's not so traumatic anymore, wouldn't be so intense of a feeling for you.
Yes, yes.
It's
More
almost
in
all
therapy, yeah, you know.
they're all very similar. Like it might sound different PTSD compared to weight loss or whatever, but it's all
Mhm.
simple because you're just making these suggestions and it's speaking to your conscious, well, it's your conscious mind, but it's normally your unconscious mind. But because you're hypnotized, it's bringing that to the forefront and making it more alert and helping that to sink in more so that you can really it can really affect you permanently. Whereas if I was just telling you and you're not hypnotized and I was just saying these same words, it wouldn't affect you the same way.
Hmm. Would it be accurate to say that it can kind of interrupt repeated patterns of thought, kind of habitual thoughts that can kind of break that, loop?
It can be habitual thoughts. It can also be habitual behavior. Like, just for example, and this is something simple. I had a woman that wanted to lose weight, and one of her biggest issues was that she constantly drank soda. I think it was Mountain Dew every day,
Mm.
even first thing in the morning, she'd have Mountain Dew.
And that's super high
So
calories, super high carb. Yeah.
super high caffeine. And she said she hardly ate anything. She mostly just drank soda, which I mean, totally unhealthy, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she wanted to break that habit. So we just talked about how she didn't want to drink Mountain Dew anymore. And, she wanted to drink water instead. Anytime she'd see a Mountain Dew, she wouldn't want it, whatever. And she said the next day she got up and went to the refrigerator and looked at the Mountain Dew and didn't want it.
Wow.
Couldn't, yeah.
Wow, that is a pretty powerful effect.
And I
That is
usually,
very impressive.
well, it takes maybe 3 times before it really sinks in. I mean, it'll work the first time, but it doesn't stay with you after only one time, usually.
Oh, I
It,
would imagine that. Yeah, you'd probably have to have some repetitions there.
there are repetitions, but there are people that are amazing that it works for right away. Like, I don't know what. I mean, well, I should give my example of myself. Long ago, before I started doing this, I used hypnosis to quit smoking. And I only had one session and I quit.
Wow.
And I
And
really,
quitting smoking is considered one
it,
of the harder things to do.
they compare it to quitting, like heroin. That's how addictive.
That's what I was thinking. Yes, the quit rate is about the same as for heroin. Yes, a little less actually, if I'm correct. But
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Um,
it's hard, but wow,
I
that
tell,
is amazing.
yeah. And like what I always tell people that call me for quitting smoking is you have to be 100% prepared. You can't just on a whim say, I'm going to go quit smoking and get hypnotized. You've really got to be mentally prepared for it. You've got to be motivated. You've got to be ready. You really, I mean, half of it is on you at least, if not more. And this hypnotism is going to help you have willpower, but it's not going to be a magic cure. I like, again, some people it works for right away. But when I went in to have it done, I was 100% ready to quit. I might have been able to quit without it even. But I think it's like a little crutch almost sometimes, because
Hmm.
it just helps you there. And it was something weird about it. It was like there would be times where I would suddenly be like, oh, that's it. I can't stand it. I got to have a cigarette. And I'd get up and I'd go to get, I was going to go to the store and buy it because I wouldn't keep them in my house anymore or anything like that. And then I'd start to go and I'd be like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. So it's like you still
Hmm.
have that thought pattern, but the hypnosis somehow breaks it up. That part kind of mysterious how
It
that
is.
works.
It is. That's fascinating. Wow. You had mentioned earlier having some psychic experiences, some psychic abilities.
I do.
Do you think, and I'm gonna, ask you about your experiences and stuff, but do you think that doing Reiki and or doing hypnosis in any way intensified that?
They say that Reiki does when you get attuned, your attunements, because each time you get attuned for each level. So Reiki 1, you get an attunement, 2, 3. And supposedly that connects you more. I shouldn't say supposedly, but it connects you more spiritually. So it does open up spiritual channels that you did not have before. Uh, that's the best I know to explain it.
Did
So
you
I think so.
have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said I do think so. Yes.
Okay, okay. But you did have some psychic impressions from an early age, or what can you tell us about
I
that?
would say I've always had some kind of psychic ability, but I didn't know what it was. I don't know how to explain it exactly. I just know things. I know things and they happen. Or, you know, I can remember like being in a room with someone when I was at work, for example, and they didn't even open their mouth and I knew exactly what was going on with them. You know what I mean? Like I tell them what's going on with them, but I never did because I didn't want to think I was a freak. But
But some precognition that you knew what was going to happen before it
or
happened.
somebody's telling me something, I could be like, that's a lie. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Or like I could look through you in a way. You know what I don't know how to
Mhm.
put it, but I can look through people. I know exactly, and I also have strong feelings about people. Uh, I don't know. I think maybe a lot of people have this where you just know it's like you don't want to be around that person. You don't want to be near that person. There's just some negative energy about that person. Or the opposite can be true too. This person is just wonderful. The first time you meet, you barely even have said 2 words to each other, and you know that you're going to get along. Things like that. I can't think
Mhm.
of any specific examples right now, but I have had them. I have
Oh
had,
yes.
you know, pre,
There's you get a vibe sometimes, and maybe you get it a lot more than maybe the
and I
average person. Yeah.
rolling with people, like especially it kind of opens the door when I do the card readings, because then you start talking and you're asking like, do you do this, do you do that, like, and then people say yes, 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 and it just keeps going from there, and it's pretty interesting.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to lead up to. Um, Lenormand card reading. Most I can tell you before I talked to you initially, I had literally never heard of this and had to go Google
Uh-huh.
what that was. Um, what can you tell our listeners about Lenormand card reading?
Well, I can tell you that Lenormand cards are just about as old as tarot cards. I think tarot is older, but not by much. Lenormand cards, I have them here, but you can't see them obviously. Um, they're more simple designs. They're more like just simple pictures. They started out in France. The woman's name was Madame Lenormand, and she invented them. And she started with just using a plain deck of cards, without just a normal deck of cards, nothing else. And so to this day, the card inserts are still on the pictures. I don't know if you have ever seen one.
I
um,
can't say that I have.
I can show
Oh,
you the people on the.
okay,
So you see here is this is called the garden, and you can see the spades on there. So that's
okay.
the
I will
card,
describe this briefly because we just do audio. Um,
right?
what I'm seeing is a picture of a garden, kind of like a painting, two
Right.
the number 20 on each side, and then what looks exactly like a normal playing card of
Right.
the eight of spades. And that's what it looks like.
And then each card has that, because when she originally started doing it, this one is a king, I think. Um,
Yes.
that's what she used, and that's what she gave the meaning to. But then
Okay.
eventually started adding the pictures
Okay.
for different, more meaning to it, to add more meaning. So it's sort of hard to explain since I don't do tarot. So people
Okay.
always say, what's the difference between tarot and Lenormand? So I have looked it up a little bit just because people always ask me that. And what
I bet. Yeah, tarot's pretty well known, I think, these days. But Lenormand is something
well,
new.
Lenormand is more known in Europe because it was invented in Europe. So a
Mhm.
lot more people in Europe use them. And I actually learned it from someone who came from Germany, and she learned it like from her mother. And
Mm.
she taught me, and she used to give me readings, and I was so intrigued with the readings that I asked her to teach me, and she did. And then I continued to study it more, and then I started giving other people readings. So I don't know if I totally answered your question about Lenormand cards. I find them so fascinating, whereas, and I have nothing against tarot at all, but I never was intrigued by them the way I'm intrigued by Lenormand cards.
Mm.
I studied them. I took a couple classes. I have own several decks of tarot cards. Um, Nothing wrong with them. I like getting tarot card readings from other people. They are read differently. The tarot cards are read one at a time, from what I'm told. Each card is separate in its meaning. Lenormand cards actually tell a story. So depending on which card is next to which card, it could have a different meaning. Depending on what you're asking, it could have a different meaning. So let's say you're asking about your career, it could have one meaning. Whereas if you're asking about, your love life or something like that, it could have a completely different meaning. And if this card happens to be next to a different card, then it could also have a different meaning. So it's almost like one is the noun and one is the adjective.
Okay.
Um, Depending on what order they are, there's different kind of spreads you can use. So that changes it. And everybody, it's just kind of a personal thing. The reader does whatever they like to do with the cards as far as how they lay them out and that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm told that Lenormand is more straightforward in their
Okay.
meanings. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, they're not read individually. They're much smaller deck. They're only 36 cards. And the original Lenormand cards are actually only as big as a deck of cards. These are actually big for Lenormand cards. They're normally
Okay.
much um their
And
interpretations
go
are
ahead.
different depending on what you ask. Like it can be negative or positive for each picture, whereas I don't think that's the case with tarot. I think they have a specific meaning for each one. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't read tarot.
Oh no,
So
no, I understand.
this I tried to find out.
Is there a like divinatory, like a predicting the future aspect, or do they more tell you what's happening in the present, or
It
both?
whatever people ask. If they ask about the future, it can be the future. They can ask about, I mean, it's usually not the present because they're almost always going to ask like, do you think I should take the job promotion that I was offered? So it's sort of still the future, you know what I mean? Because it didn't
Mhm.
happen yet. So, or they'll
Mhm.
say, should I get engaged? Or should I, it's always something that's about to happen.
Okay, yeah, I think I understand.
And I
That's
usually
very interesting.
questions for each reading that I do, two to three different, and I always tell them to prepare two to three questions because sometimes they take a while and sometimes they go real quickly. So it just depends.
What would you say? And we're just speculating here. At least I'm speculating. Maybe you have some more solid answers. What are people tapping into there? Are they tapping into their own subconscious mind, your subconscious mind, spirits?
Um,
Um, you tell me. Where do you think the answers come from?
that's such a good question, but I don't have an answer.
No, I guess we don't really know, but
I'll just tell you what I do.
yes,
I
please.
I have the person think about their question, and while they're thinking about their question, they're shuffling the cards. And while they're shuffling the cards, I'm focusing on connecting our energy, and I'm focusing on them. And they shuffle until they feel they're done. Like if they once they're supposed to tell while they're thinking about the question, they're supposed to be putting the question into the cards as they shuffle. And it's totally up to them to stop when they feel it's done. That's when I ask them what the question is and when I start laying out the cards. So it's sort of a connection between both of us, I would say, and the cards. And you'd be amazed. I've had people who didn't like the answer they got and wanted to ask the same question again and got the same cards again.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
That is impressive. Probably not what they wanted to hear, but it's better to get the truth than what you want to hear, sometimes.
Like that's the answer. I had a guy that came to me 3 or 4 times in a row over a couple months because he just did not take my answer as the answer. Like he didn't want that to be the answer. He wanted the answer he wanted. Every single time he came, got the same answer.
Wow.
And he said, that makes me trust you as a reader even more because you're not telling me what I want to hear. You're telling me what you see. And that's the truth. And the truth is what he wanted never did happen.
Wow. But that's a valuable service though, to be able to say this is not where you want to go. This is definitely not happening,
That's where it comes from. That's where it comes. I always tell people that. I always say it's coming. The universe is giving you the answer. That's what they're telling you, And sometimes when it's wishy-washy answers, I always say the universe doesn't have the answer yet. And that can, like maybe the decision hasn't been made yet. What's going to, people can ask like, how many years am I going to live or something like that, and I really like those questions very much. But usually
because there's so much undecided that, you have a choice in this. And, to the extent you believe in free will at all, you are a decider,
You have, right. If you choose this path, this could happen. If you choose that path, that could happen. So how I can give you an answer to that is almost impossible. And if people who say they can, I wouldn't necessarily trust them because, yeah, the universe doesn't always have that answer. It might not have 20 years.
Yes. And exactly. Undecided is an answer. It just has not been formulated yet.
Yeah.
And anybody who has it written in stone, I would also be very suspicious of,
Yeah, very.
There is, needless to say, unfortunately, an element in all of this there are grifters, and we've all run into them, and it's a drag,
It's a drag because it makes the rest of us look bad. And
oh yes.
I mean, I can't believe I still see people online saying things like, well, this woman gave me a reading and she told me if I come back and I bring her some hair from my son and we bury it in the backyard and I pay her $200, she can cure me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, really? People still believe? I can see back in the day when, there was no mass communication and people lived out in the country by themselves and they didn't know any. But to still believe stuff like that to this day, to me, is just ignorance.
Yes.
You think I should do it? No, of course not.
No. That's the first reading telling you that you're under a curse and you must do this, this, and this, which usually involves a significant donation to get out of the curse, is one of the tricks,
Yeah, it's all. Don't listen to those people.
No.
Trustworthy people. They don't know anything.
And that's a great red flag to stay away completely from them.
I would never, ever, charge anything extra than what I said the price of the reading was. I would never do anything like that.
Well, a lot of this stuff goes on online too, and I think it's really bad.
It's bad. It's really sad that people are people that way.
Yes, indeed.
Especially when they're elderly people and they prey on them because they're maybe slower, they can't think as quick, and they, believe what they say. It's just really sad.
Yes, indeed. To completely, I don't know, probably completely change topics a little bit. Do you have any and I will warn the audience, I'm now going to start throwing a couple left fields at Mary that I did not prep her for. Okay. And any answer, including pass, is fine. Do you have any thoughts about AI and computers in general and the role they might play in doing divination, doing any spiritual or spiritual adjacent practices?
Well, that's a good question, but I don't think I have the answer to it. I really don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about how any of that works. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. I certainly don't either.
It's
I have
like
been
that.
looking into it. I've
Hmm.
been looking into it and thinking that perhaps computers and artificial intelligence might be for lack of a better word, a medium through which spirits at some point might make contact with human beings, um, and that may have already happened.
It's
Uh,
true. Why wouldn't they be able to use that just as they use tarot cards? You know what I mean? Why?
yes, yes,
It's
pendulums, Ouija boards, what have you. Yeah,
cool.
I am reluctant to get too involved with it because I frankly don't know that much about computers and I don't know that much about mediumship. So adding ignorance to ignorance didn't seem like a good path for
Not,
me.
not a,
But there are people who are experimenting with this stuff, and I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if they got some pretty interesting results.
yeah, I'm gonna look into that a little bit. I mean, not that I would
Hmm.
go down the path because I'm like not really the computer. I know enough about computers to get by, but it doesn't really ring my bell. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, yes, and it's a very unique thing. Um, Someone, and I lack the attribution of who said this, but it really kind of impressed me at the time, said that, well, look at what computers are made out of. They're made out of stuff that people have used in the past for magical practice. They're,
Crystals,
yes,
right?
crystals, exactly. Crystals, precious metals, um, sand, all of these things. These are we've already been using these for thousands of years to summon spirits and to do different things. Why wouldn't computers do that same thing?
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay, I never thought of
That's
that before.
hot for sure.
In and you can be as open or as private as you wish.
Okay.
In your life, have you had some significant paranormal experiences?
I've had a couple weird things happen to me. The first one I had was that I remember was I was babysitting for my nephew when he was about 3 and I was about 14 or something like that. And I was laying on the couch. I was going to sleep on the couch, and he was down the hall in his bedroom in his bed. And my sister was out for the evening or whatever. And I was laying there and I heard footsteps. So I thought my nephew woke up and got out of bed. So I got up and I went and looked, and he was sound asleep in his bedroom. I mean, and he was little, so it wasn't like he was faking. I mean, you could tell. So I laid back on the couch again. And I thought, well, that was strange, you know. And I heard the footsteps coming down the hallway again. And it really scared me that time. And so I remember I covered my head with the blanket and like that's gonna do
I'm only
anything.
laughing because that's what so many people do, and you think
That's what everybody.
how
And
would
then
that be effective if this was a real person?
I always think that too. How dumb. And then I heard a sound behind me, and I saw a white light because the blanket was like fairly thin. I saw a white light come over my whole body for a minute, and then it went away.
Oh,
My first really intense experience that I ever had.
wow,
Um,
that is.
and then I'm trying to remember. I've had quite a few. As a matter of
Just
fact,
to
my most
just
recent one
to hold
was
with, if you don't mind, just to hold with that one.
okay.
What was do you think that was something to do with the house that you were staying at, or
I think
something more to do with you?
I think that I was talking to my sister about it later that happened, and she said that they had been playing with the Ouija board the night before, and they had husband's brother who had died in the Vietnam War,
Oh wow,
and I think it was him
wow,
visiting. like visiting, that would have been his nephew, and he probably didn't know who I was. He was probably looking for them. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So that's what
That's
I think.
fascinating. Yeah, that's very interesting.
And I
Please
didn't
go.
before it happened. I didn't know that until after I went, talked to her the next day about it.
Mhm. Wow. And never was contacted by this entity again.
Not that I have ever heard or seen.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, please, I kind of cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. It's not a big one. I was gonna say most recently I had one where I was walking my son's dog at the cemetery because there's this huge cemetery by our house. It's a really nice place to walk. Huge. And
I think
I
I know the one you're talking about. It is. It's just enormous.
okay.
There are more
And
than one like
really a nice
church there. Yeah.
and everything is, I mean the walkways are really nice and you don't have to worry about cars coming by or anything like that. So it's a nice place to walk. And I stopped for a minute and I was standing there and it happened to be in front of a child's grave or a family or something like that. And I heard, "Hello, mommy." And I was like looking around because I thought
Ooh.
maybe there was some family by me or something like, but I had not seen anyone when I came in at all. And I looked around and there was no one there. And there never is most of the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it was as clear as a bell. "Hello, mommy."
Wow.
Uh, it freaked me out. I'm like, what? The
That
only
would do it. That would, yeah. The dog's probably gone far enough. That's called
yeah.
now.
And then I had some other weird ones. Like I had one where we were on vacation one time. We were in Door County, and the place we stayed at had a cemetery behind it. I don't know if Sister Bay, the Little Sister Cemetery. And we walked through it that day just for the heck of it to walk,
Yes,
it was by
certainly.
hell. So we walked through it. And that night, I kept feeling my blanket getting tugged. And finally, it came right off. Like I missed grabbing it the third time it happened. My
Wow.
blanket right off, pulled off me. And I heard something in my ear say, "Hello," just like hello. And of course, it scared me to death.
Yeah, that would definitely do it. Wow.
Sleep anymore that night. It always
Uh-huh.
happens. Seems to happen to me on vacation because another time we rented a cabin up north and the cabin was haunted or something because I thought my husband was getting up during the night. And the next day I said to him, "Why do you keep getting, like, I hear you walking up and down the hallways and going outside?" He said, "I wasn't doing that." And I'm like, "Oh, come on. I heard you. He said,
Mhm.
"I thought it was you." So then the next, it happened again. And
Wow.
I could literally hear the front door opening and closing. And I don't know if it was really opening and closing or I just, I don't know how that works. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, we stayed there for a week and it got worse every day. And then I heard the steps running down the hallway and it literally like felt something land on my bed that I was sleeping in. Yeah, that was a really weird, we never stayed in that cabin again.
I bet not. Yes. I was going to ask, when something's pulling the sheet or blanket off of you, did your husband react and notice this too, or was he
That he was
he?
upstairs.
Oh, okay, okay.
He was
Because some
sleeping upstairs.
because sometimes there'll be the phenomena where something really intense will be happening to one partner, and the other
Mm,
partner will totally
yes,
not see it or hear it, or
I've heard, like, how can they not? But I guess they're not experiencing it for some reason.
yes, yes. I just to mention it, the phenomena of people walking around where there are no people happened not at the current house we live in, but a previous house. And I got home from work and I was alone. And I could hear the sounds of at least one, probably two people in the upstairs. We had two-story house. And it sounded like they were removing we had an air conditioning unit instead of central air. And they're
Uh-huh.
picking up this big heavy metal box and putting it on the ground. And I wasn't thinking anything paranormal or at all. I'm thinking I came home to a burglary, and
Right.
walked in. I might be in a big dangerous situation here. And at that point, I was working as a sheriff's deputy, so I actually had a gun on me at that second,
That
and
was
I took it up, and I'm like, very, as you see in the movies, very tactically walking upstairs, looking around the corner, cleared
uh-huh.
all the room. There's nobody there. There's nobody there. Nobody
And then you're just so
aped.
out.
And then I was freaked out because I'm like, I heard this very loudly. This was not squirrels. This was not something tipped over. This was people walking around and moving stuff. And I get up and there are no people. And
I wonder,
nobody went anywhere. There's nothing. It was
I,
absolutely bizarre.
it must have been somebody that lived there before that came back. That's
We
what
had a lot of weird experiences in that house. Yeah.
yeah. Some of the people just don't move on. They just keep coming back.
Hanging around, doing whatever. Yes. Yes.
In
um,
life.
and would you say that that's, and this is just opinion, just your speculation, do you think it's their soul actually living there, or is it just kind of like repetitive energy?
It
Like,
can be one or the other.
I would,
You know,
yes,
it
I would,
could be like they say, like a movie film strip playing over and over again, like their energy was just left behind. But it
yes, that would
can be,
make more sense to me
yeah. I mean, at
than,
least that it could be both or either.
yes, I don't think there's just one solution to the question of ghosts or really any of this stuff, you know, any of the
Right.
paranormal things we talk about. There's probably more than one answer, and probably
More,
phenomena that mimics other phenomena,
right.
you know.
That's true.
I don't know about you. That's why I'm going to ask you. Have you ever had anything to do with UFOs?
I don't really. I'm not
I
that.
never have either, but I live by an airport, so I ignore most everything, you know.
My husband is more interested in UFOs. Just he, just likes to watch these shows about them and stuff, and so I do too. But I don't know what to believe, honestly, about them. I mean, I'm sure it's very possible that they do exist and there really are people coming on spaceships. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I just don't know. I
Oh
don't know
no,
what.
and I don't think any of us have any kind of a lock on what that might be. I always just everybody that I have on, I like to ask a couple
Yeah,
of those kind of questions just in
sure,
case.
sure.
Sometimes you get some
Yeah, you
interesting
never.
stories, insights, you know. um, excuse me, I just said get a little water there. Um,
No
so
problem.
yes. Um, this has been very interesting, Mary. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you'd like to tell us? Anything that I haven't touched on?
Well, um, one thing I wanted to say was that I don't know how exactly. Um, I'm all about just like the white light and the high energy and nothing negative, nothing residual or dark or, you know, I don't believe in it's, well, I guess I shouldn't say I don't believe in it. I just don't want anything to do with it. And I think people are under the wrong impression when they see that it's somebody that reads cards or whatever. They imagine that we're into all this weird stuff that, and I'm not. I have absolutely no interest in that stuff. I don't want anything to do with people that do have an interest in that stuff. I am not. I mean, I just think it's a real thing. I mean, you really can be hurt. You can be you can be made sick. A lot of things can happen to you if you mess around with black energy or black magic or anything like that. So I don't know what other people say to you that you talk to, but it is not my thing for sure. And I want people to know that just because someone reads cards doesn't mean that's the kind of thing they're interested in.
Oh no,
You,
there's a huge spectrum of people who engage in different spiritual practices. And
right.
yeah, I was going to ask if other
Think
than
that.
card reading, you did other things.
Well, just hypnosis and Reiki. That's
Okay,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
which covers quite a lot, by the way. You
Yeah.
know,
That's a lot.
that's quite a bit. Yes.
But nothing negative ever. Like it's
No,
all
no.
best and highest good. I mean, I would never do anything negative.
And that's probably a very good policy. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it,
I have no interest in any dark side type of, what you might call the left hand path. I leave that stuff completely alone because I just don't want to. Well, I look at it like this. If you were going to deal with regular people, like you and I, like, you know,
mm,
incarnate human beings, there's some very bad people in the world. I
you-
wouldn't want to sit down with a few serial killers, or, sit down with some mafia guys or something. No, I don't need that trouble. And I look at it the
why,
same way spiritually.
right? Why would you? Yeah, and you don't want to deal with those people that are dead either.
No, exactly. I don't need to seek them out. Not at all.
Yeah,
Um,
I do that at all, and it can make you really sick. I mean, I don't know if there's people who are interested and they think they know what they're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. It's very dangerous. Very dangerous.
and
I
it's
sound.
yeah, you want to ease into and look before you leap on anything like that. I would absolutely say.
Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention that I
Oh yes,
haven't
please.
is another question I get a lot about hypnosis is what is the difference between hypnosis and meditation?
Oh, that's a good question.
It turns out they're actually very similar, much more so than I realized when I first started doing it. Um, Sometimes the brainwave activity can be different in each one, but the biggest thing that makes them different is just that meditation is not for a purpose. Like you're not meditating because you want to quit smoking, whereas you're doing hypnosis because you want to quit smoking. So basically, they're almost the same. And I did not know that. Like I found
Hmm.
that interesting.
I have never meditated enough to really. I have done it plenty of times in the past, but never enough to really get to that deep level where you would see those kind of similarities. That's
Well,
very interesting.
did you know, and you probably don't know this because I don't think most people would know this, but the space between when you fall asleep and when you're falling asleep and when you actually fall asleep is the closest you'll ever be to being hypnotized when you're not being hypnotized. So that's the best time to actually repeat, like a mantra in your mind, like you want something to happen, even if it's something like I even do like I will remember my dreams because I like to remember my dreams and write them down. So I'll do that, like as my mantra right before. It's just that little space of time when you're between those two, between being awake and being asleep.
That's fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
try to make changes if you're not actually going to a hypnotist. Is
Hmm.
that's when you use self hypnosis,
Hmm.
uh, and you can just come up, whatever the thing is that you want to make a change in your life, just repeat it over and over, and as you're falling asleep, and it's gonna. And the other thing you can do is it can help you find lost art items.
Really?
Yeah, because it's in
Wow.
your just mind. You
Okay. Okay. You're accessing your subconscious mind.
you're accessing that information. So like, I mean, one time I was trying to find my like birth certificate or something, or my son's birth certificate. So I just kept saying, where did I put the birth certificate? And when I woke up, I knew where it was and I found it.
Oh, that is fascinating. Wow.
Yeah. Our minds are,
Since since you mentioned it, now I have to follow up. You keep a dream journal,
I do.
and what can you tell us about that? What have you learned
Well,
doing that?
because I'm actually very fascinated with the study of dreams.
Oh,
It's
okay.
another one of those things that I've always been interested in from the time I was a child. I'm a very vivid dreamer. All my dreams are in color. They're full of detail. There are always a million things happening in them. Whereas it blows my mind because people will tell me they don't dream or their dreams, nothing happens in their dreams. It's like, oh my God. Like I have always my entire life I've had these crazy dreams. And so I started writing them down. And I did this years ago and I stopped. But I did it for like 2 years straight. And you can learn, like you can see patterns in your dreams and you can see after a while like symbolic things. You can analyze your dreams. And then another thing that I'm trying to learn right now, which I've done it a couple times, but just a couple times, is how to lucid dream.
Oh,
And
yes.
lucid dreaming is when you know you're dreaming, but you're still dreaming, and you can actually manipulate your dreams.
Oh.
A lot of times when people are when they realize they're lucid dreaming, it'll freak them out and they'll wake up, which is what happened to me. Because, oh
Mhm.
my God, I am dreaming. Oh, so one of to learn to practice is not to get freaked out when you realize you're dreaming, and I'm actually taking a class right now, an online class about dreaming, and they said, like, what you should do is all day long you should say to yourself, is this a dream? Am I dreaming? Because that way, when you are dreaming, you'll say that, because you get in the habit of saying it all day long. And so anyway, that's what I'm trying to learn right now, is to teach myself how to lucid dream. And there is a hypnosis that can help you to be a lucid dreamer.
Wow, that is
So
fascinating.
yeah, you can actually, I was actually going to do that down the line once I finish studying about dreams more, so I know more, and can share more in this group that I'm going to do with the lucid dreaming. Yeah, I can't wait until I can get better at it, because I think it'll be amazing. You can fly
Yes. Oh,
dreams, you can.
I have talked to some people and listened to some people who have had fantastic experiences doing lucid dreaming. Yeah.
Yes, it's
It,
just amazing, isn't it? Like,
it is. It's very interesting. The only experience I have firsthand, which might sound a little weird, but because of the PTSD, I take a prescription medication that prevents nightmares. Because I used to have really severe nightmares.
oh, I bet.
And it works great. I can't praise it. That really made a difference in my
Oh,
life. Good
that's great.
doctors. But
Yes. Oh, Western medicine works sometimes.
absolutely. One of the it has this weird little side effect that when I'm not fully asleep, or when I'm either falling asleep or waking up, I'll have this interlude of unintended lucid dreaming, where
Oh,
I'll be dreaming, but I'll know I'm dreaming. And like, I was having a dream the other day that there was some big mess in the house, like a bottle of milk had shattered or something. And then
uh-huh.
in my mind, I just said, "No, it didn't. This is a dream." Poof, and it was all cleaned up in the dream. And it was lucid dreaming. It only
Yeah,
lasts for a few minutes, or feels like it lasts for a few minutes, but it is a side effect of that has given me some
you're
insight in what it's like.
most people, I said, you're lucky to have that side effect. A lot of people
Oh,
would love.
yes, very much. Now, it only lasts for a short period of time. I haven't been able to use it to fly or do any of the things that more advanced people can do. But it's
That's what they
just
say, to train yourself not to, like, freak out when you realize that it's happening, because that'll wake you up.
Mhm,
So I think the more you do it, you probably get better at that.
mhm.
But yeah, I
And it's
fly.
just usually it's a very, very mellow experience. And then I kind of either wake up or go to sleep, for whichever thing I'm going. But yes, I have I have to ask, while you've documented your dreams, have you ever felt that spirits contacted you in a dream state? Because
I
I've
felt
been
that.
told that it's easier for them to reach you in your
Yeah,
dreams than in waking reality.
I've had many of those dreams, many,
Wow.
like all the time. I've had people that have passed come to me in my dreams many times, and I can tell the difference. It doesn't feel the same as a normal dream about that person. It's just different. It's like they really are trying to communicate with you. I don't know how to exactly explain it, but oh, I've had it a lot. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And the spirits of the departed or other beings?
Spirits of the departed.
Okay.
I've never had.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just
Yeah. No,
just curious. I've had the experience of interacting in a dream with a person who was deceased exactly once, but it was one of the more powerful experiences of my life.
mm,
And we were not friends while he was alive. Kind of the opposite, really. And we, and he had only been dead like maybe 2 days or so.
Mm.
And he came to me in my dream, and I can talk about it calmly now. Okay. We're sitting here talking about it. It was not a negative experience. It was a beautiful experience. Um, but the first time I discussed it with the psychologist, I broke down crying because it was that intense.
I
Um,
believe.
I absolutely knew this guy was there. It was 100% real. It was not a dream about him. It was an interaction with him.
Right. Right. It's
And
a complete thing.
yes, and we ended up embracing in the dream. And he's talking, but I can't hear what he's saying. I can only hear what I'm saying, which is, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And when I woke up from that, whatever problems we'd had in the past were done. And
Maybe that
he,
was his purpose for coming to you,
oh,
was to try.
I very much so think that it
Yeah.
was, yes. And that really hit home. That was, well, it was a one-time experience,
Yeah,
but
that's amazing.
it was amazing. It changed my life, and how I perceived that guy and everything.
Wow.
It was really something. Yes.
Was it a friend or a relative? You don't have to tell me who.
It was a neighbor. It was a guy that lived in my neighborhood that we just did not get along. To be blunt and without going into specifics, I was a cop and he was a criminal,
Okay.
and
Okay.
we were
Yeah.
at odds,
Yeah.
and he died violently.
Mm.
It was ruled a suicide, but I always believed that some of his fellow gang members might have killed him.
Well, if you ever again, ask him.
I I would, but I don't think I'll be seeing him again. I think that he did pass on. I just got that very strong impression
Yeah.
that he was going to visit me once, and then he was on his way to wherever he was going after that.
Well,
And
and to that, maybe you were the only person that he knew that was spiritual enough that you would get the message, like that he could connect with, and he didn't know how else to do it. I don't know what they think over there,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I
It's tough to say. It just seemed like we needed to quash that beef. We needed to settle, let bygones be bygones for him to move on.
yeah.
And we did. And I
Well,
have no negative feelings about him whatsoever. And I only hope the best that he has gone on to a better future.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah. So that very interesting things that can happen in dreams.
To me, the most fascinating thing. Very fast.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Um, well, we have been talking for a moment here, Mary.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know?
I think I've covered everything I can think of.
All right, all right. Well, hey, I've had a great time talking with you. Um, please tell us where you can be found on the internet and anything that you'd like as far as, your business or anything you'd like to put out there.
Well, I don't know how soon people are going to actually hear this, but I do have the past life regression this week on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. I'm located in Brookfield on 131st and Burleigh. And I do have a Facebook page called Firefly Reiki Hypnosis and Lenormand Cards. I don't have a website. So basically just look me up on Facebook. And I post all my events there, and I will be doing several other, usually most of the things I do are here, but I also participate in like spirit fairs and things like that, which a couple of those are coming up soon. I don't have them in front of me,
Excellent.
but yeah, so yeah, that's about all I have.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for being a guest. Thanks for the information you've imparted to us.
Thank you for
Oh, my pleasure. Well, I guess I will wrap things up. This has been The Weird Part. I am your host, Vincent Treewell. Our special guest tonight has been Mary from Firefly Reiki
hypnosis.
Hypnosis and Lenormand card reading.
Yep.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. Do I hang up now?